Will Jesus survive? Will Callie be freed? Let's dive right into Season 4, Episode 12 of The Fosters on this episode of What Happened. This episode is titled Dream a Little Dream, which is fitting since we spend a lot of the time in Jesus' dream, or rather, a nightmare, and it's pretty intense. But before we get to that, let's start with these shocking moments from tonight's episode. Now, I honestly didn't think this episode was as shocking as the last episode, but of course, when you come back from a break, you kind of got to really dive in and bring the shock value. So that's why that one was way more shocking. This one had a few shocking moments, but a couple other big moments. First up, Callie is still at the police station awaiting her fate when we overhear Detective Bruckner, who I'm going to call Detective Smart Guy, because, you know, he's the dad from Smart Guy. We see him talking to that detective, that scumbag Detective Gray. Yeah, we don't like him, obviously, and he is shady AF. Now, Troy eventually comes to the police station with his lawyer, and we get a whole he said, she said side of this story and this accident, which, of course, we all know the truth, but these cops don't.
She just got so worked up.
And he wasn't watching the road. We were drifting over the line, so I grabbed the wheel.
It's like she was trying to run us off the road.
Troy is basically trying to pass his story off like he's a victim and Callie is crazy and has been stalking them and harassing him. We all know the truth. And Bruckner seems to kind of be on Callie's side, but crooked Detective Gray over here is spitting things out left and right, trying to convince him otherwise, and just saying so many absurdities like this one.
So what are you thinking? I don't know. Sounds like a he said, she said to me. Except she said's been in a group home in juvie twice. Where's Troy Johnson squeaky clean? Not even an outstanding parking ticket.
Hey. Seriously, Gray? Just because Troy has a clean record, never been in trouble with the law, doesn't mean he's a good person. And we all know that you are shady and have been covering things up like his grandmother's murder for some reason. And we're going to get to the bottom of that. We better, because I really just want to give this guy a piece of my mind. And I know that Steph does too. My next moment isn't so shocking, but it is a big moment, which is why it's on the list. Mariana and Matt have a heart-to-heart in the garage where she explains the whole Nick situation to him and how, like, he's sick and she didn't know what to do because he kept threatening to kill himself and all these kinds of things. And Matt understands, and they kind of make up and have this big understanding. And Mariana ends up asking Matt if he loves her, and he says, "Of course I do." And then the two end up, well, kind of an awkward lead up or time for sex, in my opinion, just based on the conversation they were having. But I guess when you have the feelings and you know, you know. Another somewhat less shocking moment, but a moment that I loved, is between Brandon and Jude. I feel like we haven't had a ton of them together lately, maybe not. And we all know that lately Jude has been, for lack of a better word, kind of a dick. He's not the sweet little Jude that we used to know, and he's off smoking pot and trespassing and things. And I get it. He's going through the typical teen changes, rebellion, hormones, everything. But he's definitely changed, and Brandon finally calls him out on it.
Some mistakes you can't take back.
Whatever.
And don't be an ass. Come on. Hey, you know, what happened to that nice kid that came to live with us? I miss him.
Towards the end of the episode, we do see a bit of a change in Jude, as he actually washes the dishes without being asked, and it's not even his duty. But will that keep up? In the last episode, we saw Emma blame Mariana for Jesus being in a coma, which was a tad harsh, and I was definitely pretty mad at Emma. In this episode, Mariana finally confesses to Emma what happened that day that Jesus and Nick got in a fight. She didn't actually see Nick. She was hallucinating because of the pills, and that's why she called Jesus thinking that Nick was there. So Jesus came running to protect her, obviously, and Mariana feels like everything is her fault. Since Mariana's feeling awful, Emma leans over, gives her a big hug, and it seems like they're made up, but you know what, Emma, excuse me, you still have not apologized. You could at least say you're sorry to Mariana for being so harsh on her. I'm going to be sitting over here waiting for that apology in the next episode, hopefully. This confession from Mariana was probably brought on by another brief moment that's going to make our list, because when Steph is giving an update to the family on where Callie has been and what's going on with her, Mariana asks what Callie was doing in the car with Troy in the first place.
What was she doing in that guy's car to begin with?
She was looking for you, love.
Man, Mariana is really feeling the guilt. Poor girl, everything is just piling up on her plate, and if she wasn't stressed already, she totally is now, and I just need someone to tell her it's not her fault. Please, someone in the next episode, tell her this was not all her fault. My sixth shocking moment is courtesy of an angel. We see an older woman in the room next to Jesus' room looking after her daughter, who is also asleep or in a coma. So she spots Lena crying outside of Jesus' room and asks if she can sit down with her, and of course, she comforts Lena.
And it's something you should be proud of. Because kind kids turn into kind adults. And God knows this world could use a lot more of them.
Later on in the episode, Lena sees Melanie's husband and asks about his mother-in-law when he reveals this.
Is your mother-in-law still here? I want to thank her. She really helped me get through a rough night.
My mother-in-law, Melanie's mother, passed away a few years ago.
Did you see that coming? Because I don't think I did. The scene between Lena and the angel, as we'll call her since we actually never do get her name, was just so sweet and one of my favorite moments from the episode. And going back to Callie, one of the biggest shockers is when we learn that she is going to have to stay in juvie. She's not going to get to go back to the house because they think she's a flight risk and she's been in trouble before and yada yada yada. We've heard it all before. At the end of that little hearing, we learn that she is going to have to go to a fitness hearing. What is that, you might ask? Well, it's basically means that if the judge sees fit, they can try Callie as an adult, which is definitely not going to be a good thing at all. As mentioned before, Jesus spends most of this episode trapped in that nightmare, which is all of itself pretty shocking. There's lots of little twists and turns in it. He's running through the hallway, skateboarding, ends up at the house where it's empty. The real estate agent tells him that the family's moved and left him. We see little Mariana directing him and pulling him in different ways. We see Nick dressed up as Santa because Lena's playing him Christmas music. He ends up pulling out a gun and shooting grown-up Mariana, or current Mariana, and all this stuff is happening, and basically what we learn is that Jesus keeps hearing that he's to blame. He didn't save Mariana. Everything is his fault. Of course, he has no idea what's happening out in the real world. The last thing he knows is that he got hit by Nick, didn't save Mariana, thinks she's in danger, and now he's blaming himself for things. At the end of his nightmare, dream, whatever you want to call it, he hears the moms telling him to come back and that they love him and to wake up, but he also sees little Mariana who's telling him that he should go with her because they don't have to hurt anymore. It's like, do you wake up or do you go into the light and I guess die? And it's this whole back and forth. And eventually we see him awaken. Everybody is excited. He's kind of speaking gibberish because he's just coming out of this coma and he might have some brain damage. We're not sure. I guess that's what we're going to see in the coming episodes, is how his recovery is going to play out. But I'm hoping for a heart-to-heart between Mariana and Jesus, that there's no hard feelings and, you know, everything gets explained. But of course, fingers crossed for a speedy recovery. My last shocking moment comes when we see Brandon on the phone trying to get back into Juilliard, and they tell him that his spot is taken, which we're not surprised by, but we all know that he doesn't want to have to break the news to the rest of the family and to his dad and feel like a disappointment. Now, as he hangs up, he's outside the little hospital store and window, and he looks in and sees Emma buying a pregnancy test. Now, of course, first thought is, uh-oh, Emma's pregnant with Jesus' baby, because that would be the logical thing, and that's what he's thinking as well. But, of course, we're wrong. We see Emma hand the brown bag with the pregnancy test to Mariana. Yeah, Mariana's already asking for a pregnancy test, which seems a little odd since her and Matt really only hooked up like a few hours ago. Guess you can never be too safe, but if they were being safe, they probably would have used a condom and would have rather needed the morning after pill instead of a pregnancy test already. We'll see how this plays out. So much went down in this episode, but thankfully I don't think there was as many shocking moments this time, giving us a little bit of a break, but there were obviously big moments. Next week, however, I feel like it's going to be a different story, probably more shocking as we get Jesus being awake. We have Callie and her trial and being stuck in juvie where some definitely shady things look like they're going on around her. And I need to know if anybody is going to try to take down Detective Gray and Troy. Let me know all your thoughts on this episode below or hit me up on social media Do you think Jesus will be okay? Do you think Mariana's really pregnant? And will Jude give up his rebellious ways and become the Jude we all loved? Who knows? Until next week, be sure to check out my recap of Shadowhunters in Riverdale over here and subscribe for even more. And you can also hit that little bell so you never miss a video on this channel again. Thanks once more for hanging out with me, Lisa, right here on What Happened. Have a good night.